talk to me when I'm doing my lashes.
I'm sorry. This is just another episode of the top 10 favorite and from what I believe are the best performances by some of the greatest actresses in all of classic cinema.
Holy cat, hand me that telephone, you nitwit.
I'm starting from 10 and then bleaching my own hair platinum blonde all the way up to number 1. Yeah. Never forget this. I have seen every film attainable, folks, of these artists. That's right, attainable. So every list here comes from truthful, passionate, seductive, and blonde accuracy.
Who are you? The Queen of Sheba.
And you don't want to mess with this platinum blonde, arguably one of the most iconic movie stars of all time, and became such an icon by the time she was 26 years old, folks. You know her, the bombshell with a heart of gold, Jean Harlow. Born as Harlene Harlow Carpenter in Kansas City, Missouri, but everyone called her Baby. Even in her own 20s, Mama Jean was always very protective of Baby Jean, that their relationship was always tight and tight. After Mama Jean divorced Baby Jean's father, she moved them to Hollywood in plans of following through on her dream of becoming a famous actress, which fell apart due to being apparently too old at this point. Off they went back to Kansas City, but Baby Jean would attend a summer camp in Michigan, where she would sadly develop scarlet fever, which would play a big part in Jean's ultimate death in 1937, so sadly. But once she married high school sweetheart, the wealthy Chuck McGrew III, she went off to LA with her mom right behind her again. And wouldn't you know, when you help a friend who wants to become a famous actress like Rosalie Roy and drive her to casting calls, you get discovered by Central Casting. And after enough of their rejections, Jean finally accepted extra work on the studio lot under the works of Hal Roach, making an eye-popping appearance in Laurel and Hardy's short film Double Whoopee with her torn backless dress. That's such a great short film. Of course, many people will always remember her head-turning, practically Shakespearean portrayal in Howard Hughes' Hell's Angels, getting some of the worst reviews she's ever received for her performance.
Oh, shut up.
But we all have to start somewhere, and for Jean, with enough publicity, enough opportunity, and enough guts, she grew as a sex symbol, a promising actress, and becoming one of the screen's greatest legends. Let's be frank, folks, Jean Harlow is surely not one of the greatest actresses that can rival, say, Joan Crawford, Babs, Bette Davis, etc. However, what she was able to do was gravitational for men as well as women. Her image was definitely all designed to entice and seduce men. And because she was at heart Jean, she kept them because of her great sense of humor and gift of love. Her hair is something beyond creation, being a mix of hydrogen peroxide, ammonia, and Lux Flakes. It was an amazing creation at that time that ran for the audience, both male and female, for decades. And it's wild to think of all that Jean would go through to wash it out and re-bleach it again. It's madness. Without a doubt, it created an image for the screen that audiences, artists alike, would never forget. Anyone who knows classic Hollywood knows that the name Jean Harlow is filled with controversy and sadness. But we all know that's not how Jean would have wanted to celebrate her life. And anyone who knew Jean Harlow knew that she was one of the funniest and most sincere people to ever grace Hollywood. Though her filmography is quite small, she has still made a great amount of films that we as classic film lovers will always cherish for the rest of our lives. So let's get going, and don't rush me, brother. We're getting started on the top 10 best performances of the famous blonde bombshell, the platinum blonde with such heart, Jean Harlow. Okay, starting off at number 10, we have Platinum Blonde, which on all accounts, sure, may not be the greatest display of Jean's work right out the gate here to be at number 10. But honestly, when you really know Jean, you can see the heart that Jean gives the character of Anne, who falls in love with reporter Smith, played wonderfully by an underrated actor, Robert Williams. However, Gallagher, played by Loretta Young, loved him foist, so it shocks and appalls her when Smith and Anne elope. But will the marriage last long? I mean, this is Jean's movie based on the title itself, despite how well it's directed by the amazing Frank Capra. So sad that this was the only film they did together, Capra and Harlow. And even despite Loretta Young's top billing here, Jean has all the loveliness to offer for this film to be entertaining as well as endearing. Number 9, Reckless. Yes, the 1935 romantic musical comedy drama starring two of the screen's greatest real-life lovers, Jean Harlow and William Powell. She's Mona Leslie, a musical star, but sadly dubbed by Virginia Verrill, who falls in love with Bob, played by Francho Tone, a very rich producer, which affects Ned, played by William Powell. However, things take a turn when Bob's inner depression takes its toll, and he does follow through with, spoiler alert, killing himself. This brings the public's eye to Mona Leslie, possibly blaming her for his death, considering her class of friends and where she came from. Okay, let's be honest, folks. The film is actually not that good of a film. The pacing is very slow, which is weird considering it's Victor Fleming behind the camera here. Everything changes in the cutting room, we all know that, but still. Victor Fleming had helped her become a big success with a previous film they did together, produced by David O. Selznick. And the only performance that really does shine in the whole film is, you guessed it, Jean's. The major problem is that the film's plot is very much similar to the real-life tragedy of Paul Byrne, Jean's second husband, who committed suicide at their home in the bathroom, left a suicide note, which began a whole big scandal to fix. The suspected story is that Jean found Paul dead and then called MGM's publicist, who called Louis B. Mayer, Irving Thalberg, and Selznick, and had to arrange what she would say to the newspapers and film her sudden reaction to his death. The speculation on why Paul Byrne killed himself trails on to this day, like he was a closeted homosexual, not true. He had too many affairs, yes, and just the night before, his own ex-wife, well, actually currently common wife, Dorothy Millette, showed up creating awkward tension for him and Harlow. But Mayer wanted Harlow to say he was impotent, which she refused. She did not want to embarrass him even after death. Many of the public even suspected Jean of foul play, having something to do with causing his own suicide. So obviously, this was a horrible time for Jean, who sincerely loved her husband. And now having to do a film just a few years later that practically mirrors her own hard tragedy because your contract said so, otherwise you'd be suspended, is utter savagery. It's moments like these where we say, fuck the studios. But William Powell convinced her to avoid the suspension, and that was definitely step one in the trust and love that was being built between Powell and Harlow. Having to go through the motions of what Jean was going through, being accused of, growing from, on screen all over again, would terrify many actors. And when you see a lot of the heartfelt scenes, I see Jean trying so hard not to fall apart. She still has a sincerity to her performance that makes the film at least watchable, just and only for her. Number 8, The Girl from Missouri. Yes, another hopeful drama about a girl raised in sleaze and runs away to become a showgirl, hoping to meet Mr. Right, who also happens to be rich. Don't we all wish that? And hopefully, Francho Tone can break the mold, even when she wants the love to be pure. But can he take a chance on a girl from Missouri? Quite a mirror again for Jean, being from Missouri. So there are certainly quite a couple of living parallels linked here for her. And yes, it is a drama, but of course, thanks to Jean, there is every little bit of comedy and spice flavored in, which makes it so endearing and funny as hell. I mean, playing a virgin hoping to meet a man at this point of Jean being one of the biggest sex symbols in celluloid is outrageous, but Jean loved it. She has so many lovely moments here that director Jack Conway guides well after replacing the great Sam Wood directing, who left after the Hays Code really cracked down on films. And this was one of the first films to really be affected by the code. Born to be Kissed was too much of a racy title, apparently. So you go with The Girl from Missouri? Jesus. But The Girl from Missouri is one Jean Harlow performance that not only all young hopefuls from Kansas City can relate to, but all beautiful young hopefuls who choose to see beauty in the world can relate to. Number 7, Hold Your Man. I almost feel this should be much higher for sure, because Jean is fantastic as a woman who gets around with men. Go figure. And once con man Eddie Hall, played by Clark Gable, hides out unexpectedly in her apartment to get away from the cops, They develop a nice little romance, even getting Jean pregnant. But what a turn when Gable accidentally kills a man and goes on the lam again, and leaving Jean framed for the death, and how prison life shapes her into something else. Film number 3 of the Gable and Harlow collaborations, which is a partnership just as iconic as, say, William Powell and Myrna Loy. The shift in this film from first being Gable's to then transitioning it to Jean's is incredible. Jean delivers wonderfully here as a little con artist herself, and how she holds her own in prison is so exciting. The Hays Code certainly cracked down on this film with the requirement that Harlow had to serve time in the reformatory for having a child out of wedlock and then get married later to pay for her sins, as it were. And quite frankly, I don't mind it in the film. It adds much more depth to the character and just gives more opportunity for Harlow to work with. Both Gable and Harlow are sensationally terrific here, and every scene involving Jean beating the shit out of Dorothy Burgess is entertaining fun. And she is just as quippy as you love her to be.
You know, you wouldn't be a bad-looking dame if it wasn't for your face.
One hell of a performance. Number 6, but film number 5 of the Gable and Harlow collabs, Wife vs. Secretary. One of the greatest mature performances in Harlow's whole career. One of the greatest things about her performance as a proper and lovely secretary for Clark Gable's magazine publisher is that she is not seen as a sex symbol at all in this film. It's indeed suspected and aimed at by Gable's wife, played by an amazing Myrna Loy, but au contraire, or is it? Jean Harlow was beloved during the making of this film. All of her castmates, especially Loy, was pleasantly surprised on the ability, professionalism, and intelligence that possessed Harlow. At this point of 1936, she was dying for better roles that didn't require to seduce anyone or model lingerie, and with the scene of her with Loy in the bedroom, as Loy is packing up leaving her husband, it proves every word how she grew as an actress.
You're still going? Yes. You're a fool, for which I'm grateful.
She is so simple in that scene that it is so powerful and moving. Now, of course, that didn't stop young bachelor Jimmy Stewart from being turned on in their scenes together. Reportedly, Jimmy kept botching their kissing scene in the car 6 times just because he said in his own words, he'd never really been kissed before until he kissed Jean Harlow. What can Jean do? She possessed such a power. Number 5, Bombshell. Again, I feel this should be much higher because not only is it another mirror to Jean's own life, the studio always loved doing that to her, didn't they? But it apparently was Jean's own personal favorite film and performance she gave. It completely makes sense given to the fact the film represents everything of Jean, down to the darn title, playing movie star Clara Bow, Lola Burns, who is sick and tired of her family mooching off her, as well as the studio always talking stories about her in the papers, where she just wants to live a normal life. And hopefully French Otone, a wealthy playboy, again, who hates the movies, will resolve that for her. But can she escape her destiny along with her stardom? At first, this was conceived as a melodrama based on Clara Bow's life, but once Jean Harlow hopped on, it was switched to being a rip-roaring, speedy comedy, which director Victor Fleming achieves magically this time. Every scene from Jean is sincere and adorable, and all the references made about her films, such as a reshoot for Red Dust, she had no problem poking a little good-natured fun her way with that one. Speaking of which, here at number 4, ladies and gents, that's right, Red Dust. Released in prime pre-code time, with Harlow letting them all hang out in that barrel, which is one of the most controversial and sexy images in all of cinema. Oh, how they could get away with some things in the pre-code era. It's astounding. If any of her performances have been rated on Sex Factor, to me, this may be her sexiest, for she owns the robe she swings her hips around in and takes off with such confidence and desire. She basically hitchhikes her way to Indochina, where she meets Clark Gable again in their second film together, and they develop the hots for each other until the surveyor of his plantation arrives with his beautiful wife, played by Mary Astor. Now the love triangle can really explode. Greta Garbo was originally cast in Harlow's role, and even Joan Crawford was considered. But the rewrites convinced otherwise, and even still Harlow was almost pulled out because of the horrible suicide of Paul Byrne. Happened just a few days before they resumed shooting. Louis B. Mayer wanted to pull her out because it would be too much of a scandal, or so he thought. But her audience were more than sympathetic for her, so she stayed and totally nailed the floozy from Saigon. This is by far the best chemistry that Gable and Harlow have on screen, and you can throw out any views of it being trashy, for this was such Hollywood entertainment that saved the picture business that year, being the Depression. And Jean Harlow was a beautiful star that audiences gravitated even more to. Everyone loves sex, right? Gotta love the fact she stood right up from the barrel, topless, and said, "Here's one for the boys in the lab." Hey, she loved her body and loved having fun. And after learning about having to cope with the sudden suicide of her husband while filming this, that takes ultimate guts that I will always respect in Jean Harlow. Number 3, Libeled Lady. Oh, what a dream of a romantic comedy this is. One of my favorites, folks, for it's so damn hilarious, with a dream of a cast: Myrna Loy, Spencer Tracy, William Powell, and of course, Jean. Jean is at the top of her game as an actor here, as Gladys, the insulted, impatient fiancée of Spencer Tracy, a newspaper editor, and she's been begging and pleading to get married. And Spencer will, but he must resolve the issues with his newspaper once wealthy socialite Connie, played by Myrna Loy, sues the newspaper for libel, saying she's a marriage breaker. So Spencer gets the idea to catch her in the act by having his dear friend Bill, William Powell, woo her, only he's not a married man. So that's where Jean comes in, to have a fake marriage with Bill. Hilarity ziplines through this Oscar-nominated classic, with Jean giving some of her more sincere comedic bits.
Gladys, do you want me to kill myself?
Did you change your insurance?
Everyone on set had such a blast with each other. Obviously, Jean and William Powell did, being an actual couple off screen. Jean wanted to play Myrna's role, since in the script, Powell and Loy end up together. But the studios nixed that for Jean, because audiences wanted more of Powell and Loy on behalf of the Thin Man success, and more. So she settled for Gladys, which she knew it was the right decision. She is much more suited for this role, and utterly hysterical. It wouldn't work as well without her. She officially changed her name to Jean Harlow while filming this, so her persona was fully realized, hoping that Powell would actually marry her. Not too far away from the script itself, right? But William Powell had been married to Carol Lombard and didn't want to get married again. This obviously broke Jean's heart, and needless to say, when Jean passed away just a year later after this, Powell was devastated. However, we can all agree their best pairing is in this dear classic that lives on for Jean Harlow fans forever. Number 2, Redheaded Woman. Yes, devastating it's not number 1, isn't it? I know, and let me tell you, my friends, it almost does practically tie with number 1. It is just too damn hard.
So gentlemen prefer blondes, do they? Yes, they do.
This breakthrough performance from Jean is one hell of a performance to prove every critic wrong. She was already getting a little love from Platinum Blonde and The Beast of the City, so by the time Redheaded Woman came out in 1932, folks, she was a sex symbol force to be reckoned with. Very ironic, too, with her character being a redhead versus a platinum blonde, as she was being marketed as. Clara Bow and Joan Crawford were considered for this, but let me tell you something, folks. Jean Harlow is literally on fire in this role as Lil Andrews, a gold-digging secretary who is literally willing to do whatever it takes to get what she wants. Between breaking up a marriage, crazy amount of affairs, and an attempted murder, what makes her character the more likable and appealing is the same appeal that we get from watching all the gangsters in Martin Scorsese's movies, like Joe Pesci. They mean what they say and hold nothing back, and also, they have an expert ability of comic timing. Jean is still so damn funny in this, even making the scenes between she and Chester Morris so wild when he hits her and she screams for more, then leading to a horrible abusive fight/rape that happens off screen, that you're shocked by the heaviness of it all. That's pre-code for you, baby. And honestly, Jean Harlow deserves more respect for attacking such a role at a time when being a star wasn't even a concern for her. She came in and just gave the role everything she had at the time. The critics were wildly positive too, and no, mustn't be because they wanted her sexually. It was because she was honest and so raw in the role. A performance that would be absolutely nominated today. It made Jean a respected actor, but obviously a racy, dark, and sexy one. Everyone had to start somewhere, and for Jean to blow people's minds with her committed and fierce portrayal was a giant influence for female actors to come. Okay, you nitwit, here are some honorable mentions for you. I'm just kidding, you're not nitwits, I love you. The Public Enemy. Yeah, you dirty yellow-bellied stool. This is obviously Cagney's picture all the way, but when it comes to the beginning of Harlow's career, I always loved seeing her in this role, seeing the potential she could carry with all her scenes with Cagney. I love the scene where she shows her affection and true love for him. You don't give, you take. It says so much of the kind of dame she made memorable, especially in gangsta pictures like this one. Susie. Not an amazing film, let's put it that way, even though it made a whole lot of money. But Jean still provides a little piece of herself in the somewhat convoluted plot, as an American showgirl trying to free herself from the pain of maybe losing her husband, and meets soldier Cary Grant. As you can guess, complications ensue. Yes, Jean is dubbed again, but to see Cary Grant and Jean Harlow together, and even Harlow and Francho Tone again together, is a delightful event, I dare say. Jean certainly gives the best she can in this film.
Listen, it's just as easy to fall for a big shot as a little one. A girl can love anybody she makes up her mind to.
Riff Raff. Some critics have complained this film is more tuna fish than Harlow. It's a good line. Because of its fishy plot of Spencer Tracy again, a fisherman on strike against the union, fighting for better conditions, and only wants the best support from his wife, Hattie, played by Jean. The comedic bits are fun, and once again, this was Jean giving more respect and comfort to a role that required not a sex pot, and she plays the role really well. That makes the film's lesser counterparts enjoyable. Personal Property, a very dear and significant performance, for it was technically the last film Jean Harlow fully completed filming before her tragic death, and was released 3 months before her passing. It was the only pairing between she and devilishly handsome leading man, who's really quite funny in this, Robert Taylor. They work well together here, and always a shame to not see more collabs with stars like them. You can honestly see Jean start to weaken due to all the filming, all the stress, everything that was happening to her personally and health-wise. But there are still so many maturely funny and lovely moments from Jean that makes it a worthwhile piece for Harlow fans. China Seas, film number 4 of the Harlow and Gable collabs, and film number 3 of Harlow and Wallace Beery, and even film number 2 of Harlow and Rosalind Russell. Crazy! Jean has a lot of fiery scenes here, which are electric, and you don't really notice too much of a wig she wore here due to the fact she cut her hair, and because we're sailing the high seas in this picture, she was bound to get soaked, which she did. And somehow that splash made her hair shorter? Wig is off. But she made it work. This was certainly MGM's way of repeating the success of Red Dust, and, well, mission accomplished, because there certainly was not a screen pair like Gable and Harlow. They fit wonderfully on screen together, and Jean was ever so present and attentive with her newfound work as a fine actress. Number 1, Dinner at 8. I couldn't resist, my friends, and you know it's true. This is without a doubt the funniest performance Jean had ever given in a film, with an all-star and, in Jean's mind, intimidating cast such as Marie Dressler, Lionel and John Barrymore, Billy Burke, Lee Tracy, and good old Wallace Beery. Jean steals the show. She steals every scene, unintentionally of course. She just fits the role of Kitty Packard like a 152-carat sapphire ring, which she actually owned thanks to Will Powell. Anyway, the whole cast is phenomenal of course, but this was the role that really made Jean a more well-rounded and respected star, winning over the critics and not just labeling her as a sex symbol. She still retains that title here, yes, but God, is she hysterical as the dim-witted two-timing wife of a gruff Wallace-Beery. Their chemistry together here is quite vibrant, and I think it only helped that they didn't like each other. Beery not liking Harlow much more so, thinking of Harlow as inexperienced, a below-par, eye candy type of actress. Their repartee is delightful. I love the moment of her in the bathtub.
Talbot says that you're an extrovert and I'm an introvert.
A what?
An introvert, you dummy.
Shut up, shut up, shut up. All their scenes are great, and Jean just warms your soul with how adorable she is in the sweet scenes, like the phone call with Billy Burke.
Dinner at 8.
Nope, she said the thing. Also, of course, based on the play, Jean had fantastic writing working for her, so she can make hilarious moments work like that at the party. You know, my skin's terribly delicate, and I don't dare expose it. Exposing her backless dress. Jean had said this was one picture she certainly enjoyed making, loving her director Cukor, all her cast members except one, especially Marie Dressler, whom she was in real awe of, and vice versa. This relationship was absolutely key in Jean's new inspiration for her film career, and being a real fine actress, and you can tell the power of that relationship from the classic closing lines between Dressler and Harlow.
I was reading a book the other day.
Reading a book?
Yes, it's all about civilization or something. A nutty kind of a book. Do you know that the guy says that machinery is going to take the place of every profession?
Oh, my dear. That's something you need never worry about.
It's what classics are all about. And Jean owned that role of the ditzy blonde with such heart and childlike faith, but also real intelligence herself, filled with street smarts. And only a person of real intelligence and heart like Jean could really portray such a role beautifully. That's the real definition of Jean Harlow. Beautiful. Everyone in the world would always say sexy, and yeah, she knew how to carry that sex appeal about her. But more than anything, she was a friend to everyone. She loved everyone. Every romantic relationship with a man, sure, may have been connected to not having her father in her life, but she retained such a humility about her that the public could identify with. Her influence remains so strong in pop culture to this day, being one of the influences of the design of Batman's Catwoman, being the first movie star to be on the cover of Life magazine, and becoming the idol of Marilyn Monroe. We certainly would not have Marilyn Monroe, or even Judy Holliday, for that matter. She's been played by Carol Lindley and Carol Baker in two separate films that came out the same year about her, which both of them are not even up to snuff, personally. Gwen Stefani even makes an appearance as her in The Aviator, which was pretty spot on, but there's no one that could capture the spirit of her. It was without a doubt one of the saddest days when she fell ill while making Saratoga, her last film, dying with the complications of uremia, acute nephritis, and a respiratory infection, which yes could lead back to her scarlet fever. Speculation popped of why she wasn't given more care about this because of her mother, the Christian Scientist. But myths will be myths. What remains intact, well, should be, is the faithful memory of Jean Harlow, one of cinema's greatest pleasures that taught us to be yourself, love life, live freely, and don't ever apologize for who you are.
Okay, Toots. I know you ain't got much time to fool around with passengers.
That does it, folks, but tell me, do you agree with my picks? What are your favorite performances by this incredible legend, Jean Harlow? Please share in those comments below. Comment and comment some more, why don't you? If you like this, please click like, subscribe, and don't forget the Patreon channel and Instagram channel, as well as the Spotify channel. There's so many channels here, what can you do? In the meantime, folks, thank you so much for watching. Now, if you excuse me, I really am gonna start bleaching my hair.